Greetings. How's everyone doing today? So today is Sunday. And I just wanted to check in, see how everyone is doing. I'm doing some schoolwork. Man, it's heavy. I am learning about race and ethnicity. And I was crying because they made me watch a video. Have you guys ever seen that show on ABC that used to come on called What Would You Do? And they like do all these like different scenarios and then like put these people in different like situations to see like how they would react. Well, I just watched one, right? And it was about a Muslim woman in Texas. So they set up this whole scene, right? They go into a bakery and the bakery employee is part of the whole, thing. And so the bakery employee is telling this Muslim woman, because she has like the head covering and stuff. And it was like right at the peak of the Iraqi war and stuff. And the man is like, you got to leave. I don't serve people like you. You're not an American, like just going in on her, right? And so the experiment is to see what the customers around her are going to do, right? And a lot of the people, now I'm going to tell you right now, studying about race and ethnicity and cultures is going to be very controversial, right? And they were in Waco, Texas. So they were targeting older white males to see what their reaction was going to be because of the war and all that stuff, right? A lot of the older Anglo males were not defending her. They were like, yeah, you can serve whoever you want. And some of them are like, hey, thank you for standing up for our country and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm an American. I'm Muslim, but I'm an American. I was born and raised here in America. But there were other people who actually stood up for her. And there was one older Anglican man who was like, hey, my son just came back from the Iraqi war. He went to fight for people's freedom. And like, oh my goodness, I started crying because, I always like, I'm a very sensitive person. Like I can feel the emotion in a situation. Like I don't care if it's I'm watching a movie or listening to a song or like when I talk to people, like I can feel energy, you know what I'm saying? Like I can feel people's emotions and stuff. That's just a gift that the Father has given me. And it can be heavy at times, but guys, I was like crying because there was actually a woman who this situation happens to all the time, right? And she's a Muslim, and so she wears the whole like head covering and stuff. And I put myself in that situation, because there's questions that you have to answer like after watching the video, like what would you do in that situation? And all I could think about was scripture and like how the Messiah told us like the best gift you can give is laying down your life for your friend, and he talks about who's your neighbor and the story about the Samaritan who helped the man who was beaten on the road. The Samaritan put him in a hotel and basically was like, take care of him, I'll be back, just give him whatever he needs. And I was like, man, like what would I do in that kind of situation? Like what would I do if I was exposed to seeing someone being like unjustly treated, And I was like talking to RJ about it because I was like, oh, I had to take a break. They're having to watch another one. And this one is about a woman sitting on a park bench and she's overweight. And these girls, like, mind you, it's all like set up, like it's an experiment, right? But they put her there to like, these girls are like making fun of her. And this woman right here, and she's like, she's from England, and she like was like, what are y'all doing? Why are you mistreating this woman? And I was talking to RJ, and he's like, yeah, but you have to be careful. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. Like, even as a wife, like, my husband's ahead of me. Like, I couldn't just, it's like all these things, right? Like, you have to be super careful, ready to defend yourself and that person in a situation. Like, but all I can think about was scripture and like, guys, I was never faced with dealing with racism until I moved here to Georgia. Here in Middle Georgia where I'm at, this was like the this was like ground zero for the Civil War, right? And slavery and all that stuff. I mean, this area is just rooted in all that depravity. Now, that circumstance that happened to the slaves, to the African Americans, I don't agree with it one bit. I don't understand everything as far as why the Father allowed it to happen. But it happened. And when I moved here to Middle Georgia, I experienced racism. When I lived in Texas, I was from South Texas, right? I was around Mexicans, Mexican Americans, Hispanics, you know, the Spanish culture. Like there were maybe a few African Americans, you know, where I was raised in South Texas. But when I moved up to like San Antonio, you started seeing more cultures, more diversity, more different races, you know, like more African Americans. You see more Indian people, Persian Indians, Arabs. Like it was just littered with tons of culture and diversity, right? So, but I was never racist to other races. That was not something that, that was like that's not how my mind was, you know? And when we moved to Georgia, I experienced racism, like straight up. I remember working at Publix grocery store, right? And it was an African American man who came in. I think he was a little drunk, but he had come in from the Mexican restaurant from the same shopping complex that the Publix was in. And he comes through my register, and he had gotten, I'm trying to think of like what happened. He had gotten like, you know, like when you check out on the little credit card machine, it says, would you like cash back? He pushed cash back and it was like a 50 or something. And I asked him, how would you like your change back? And he said, as long as it ain't in pesos, right? He goes like that. And I was like, what? I said, no, it ain't gonna be in pesos. Like, I mean, I got so defensive so quick. Guys, the way I was raised and brought up, I had to learn through prayer, and I still fight it till this day. I get hot tempered really quick because my whole life I've had to defend myself against people, whether when I was a child, whether it was abuse in the foster care system or abuse, you know, growing up, and that's all type of abuse. But I got to a certain age where I was like, I'm tired of being abused. I'm tired of being abandoned. Like this ain't going to happen to me. And so I built up this like, I don't know. I built up this attitude in my brain that I'm like, or this wall, that's what I'll call it. I built up a wall where I was like, ain't nobody going to step on me no more. You know what I'm saying? So my attitude turned like on a dime when he said that to me, because I knew how he was coming at me, you know. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, no, it ain't going to be in no pesos. You know what I'm saying? Like, who are you talking to? And he's like, no, I can say that. And I'm like, why can you say that? Why? What gives you the right to say that to me? And I'm looking at him like, yo, you're an African American. Like, if you should know what racism feels like, or prejudice is. You know, like, you should know what that feels like. Why are you doing it to me? You know, like, and he was like, oh no, I can do that. And I'm like, why? He said that, guys. He said, oh no, I can do that. I'm like, you must be drunk, because are you for real right now? And he was like, I can do that because I lived in California. I'm like, what does that have to do with you discriminating against me? What, are you serious right now? Like, are you that numb? Like, are you numb up there? Like, what? I'm looking at him like, you're an African American in Georgia. You know what this feels like. So why are you doing it to me? And guys, being an interracial couple, me and my husband, I'm telling you, the women around here, and I'm not making this up, the women around here do not like to see what they call one of their own with a Mexican, because that's what I am. I'm a Mexican American. My parents, my family, they were born, like my grandmother was born in Mexico, okay? And however they made it across and they got citizenship, and my mother was an American, however that happened, I don't know. But my heritage is, and I'm saying that because I used to be ashamed of that, because I felt like my mom was on welfare. She lost her children. My dad was a heroin addict. He went to prison. My mom went to prison. It was like I started denying my race and ethnicity because I was ashamed of what my parents did. And I was like, when I finally came here to Georgia, I was like, no, I'm not going to be ashamed. I'm going to be, this is who I am. I'm not going to be ashamed of, you know, who I am. And I don't think anybody should, but, you know, I've dealt with those situations a lot here in Georgia. I remember when I was working at Publix, there was a little field, and you know, the crazy part is, why is it that those who are discriminated against, we discriminate against other people? Like, if you know what it feels like to have that situation happen to you, you should like protect other people. That's what I'm thinking. No. They would look at my husband and look at, we still get it today. And this is part of some of the anxiety that I get going out into the town. And I have to pray against that, because not every person I run into, not every African American is going to be that way. You know, not every white person is going to be like that, because I've even had it with white women. I can tell you stories and stories about people discriminating against me because of how I look. And now that this thing that's happening with the you know, the migration stuff, and they're doing all these roundups. I told my husband, I said, RJ, they have stopped me before in Texas when they were doing, when they were looking for illegals. They had stopped me because I'm Mexican. They looking for Mexicans who are illegal. So they gonna stop you. ICE is gonna stop you and check your ID, right? And I told him, I said, listen, they have stopped me before, but I was trying to explain to him the process. If they stop us, they're just gonna ask for ID. They're gonna ask me where I'm from. They're gonna look at it and then let us go. It's happened to me before. In case it happens, I just want him to know it could happen, you know. But I've had, like, working in the Publix bakery, I had a white woman come in and she was mad that we didn't have some bread that she needed ready. I wasn't even working that shift, and she straight out was like, I want to talk to the manager. The store manager came, and the store manager was a white woman. I thought for sure I was outnumbered, you know. But I was surprised. My manager actually stood up for me, because the woman was like, you know, my manager was like, what's wrong? What's going on? And trying to calm the woman down, because she was like, and she's a nurse. She's a nurse in this town. And I'm going to tell you guys, this town is small. So for me, I was like, how you people going to mistreat people you live around? Like, me and my husband, we don't rent a house. We own a house. We own land in this city. We pay taxes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are part of this community more than most people, because we actually own property in this town. You know what I'm saying? I was like, how are you going to mistreat people that you live around? Like woman, you don't think we going to run into each other again? But when my manager came up and was like, what's going on? You know, like trying to appease the situation, the woman goes straight out, this Mexican here. And I'm like, okay, number one, I'm American. You know what I'm saying? Like, but in Texas, I wasn't exposed to that, because in South Texas, you were around a whole bunch of Mexicans that are like you. And it was very seldom that, there were other people of other cultures and diversities. You know what I'm saying? But when there was, that was never put into my heart. Like, that seed was never planted in my heart to be like that until I came here. And so this class, guys, has got me, I'm all involved and I'm like emotional. And I was talking to RJ about it, and I'm like, wow, this is bringing up a lot of, you know, emotion. And it was like having us talk about food, you know. And one thing that I like, and this is my personal experience, and one thing I had to get used to was marrying into an African American family, right? So my mother-in-law is African American, my husband's African American, and it took me to not be so thin-skinned, as RJ would say it, because my mother-in-law does not like Mexican food. She does not like anything Mexican, like spices, Mexican, nothing. And she'll tell you. And when I first moved here, have you ever heard that saying when it was like, don't let someone's yum, like, that's yummy, become your yuck? Like, I don't know if you have ever heard that. Like, people be like, it's rude to be like, if someone finds something appetizing and you're like, ugh, that's gross, you know, like, ugh. And she would do that. She would say that. Like, she has this thing where she's like, ugh, and it would offend me. But RJ was like, hey, you can't be so thin skinned, right? And I was like, but why, why? It would drive me nuts because I had to learn that's just how she is, that she's outspoken. She gonna tell you she doesn't like something. And I had to learn how to not be so thin skinned about it and just accept it. Like, okay, she don't like it. And if, she's my mother-in-law, I need to show her respect. Cause guys, living on the streets, not growing up with parents, like you don't learn that level of respect. You see everybody else as just like another person, and that was something I had to explain to her too. Like, I'm learning this whole like mother-in-law relationship, having a mother-in-law, like I've never had a mom, so I don't know how to treat a mom or what's right, what's not. Cause when I first came here, guys, I was hot-headed and I was like, don't mess with me kind of attitude. I didn't care about speaking back to her. I didn't care about like, telling her the piece of my mind that I was feeling at that time. And the Father in heaven had to work on me with that because, I had to get rid of that wall that I had built up of like always thinking people are attacking me, whether she was attacking me or not, like that's not for me to judge. Like we all have a judge and he's going to judge us accordingly, So like I had to learn that, hey, if she's attacking you and that goes with anybody in the world, like if they're attacking you, they gonna have a price to pay. Just let it happen. That took a lot for me to deal with that. But like this class that I'm taking is bringing up a whole bunch of like emotions of like, wow, I'm not comparing myself to what the African Americans went through when they were in slavery, or the things that my husband goes through. And I'll be the first to tell you this. Don't ever downplay someone else's trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like, me and my husband, we would fight about this all the time. Like he would say, oh, you haven't faced what I faced. And I'm like, okay, but still, it's traumatic to me. So why you want to downplay me? Like, oh, it ain't not, and then so we had to learn each other's boundaries. Like, just because it's something I haven't gone through that he's gone through, I should not tell him like, oh, you don't even understand that, or you don't know what that's about, or, you ain't gone through nothing. It doesn't matter. Like, just because they think it ain't something, like that person who's going through it, it's traumatic for them. And we have to respect that. You know what I'm saying? Like when my mother-in-law, when she lost her husband, when he passed, I was very insensitive to understanding that she was going through grief. And I had to learn, and RJ had to put me in my place several times. And like, hey, back up. And I feel like, and mommy, if you're watching this, I love you. And I am thankful that we have come to a place where we can love on each other and have set boundaries with one another. And I do apologize for I felt like I was not sensitive during your grief, during your time of mourning when we lost your husband and when we lost Pop, because I had a lot of growing to do and I'm still growing, and I love my mother-in-law. We're in a place now where we both have had healing from past trauma, because that's what happened. Like, she had trauma, I had trauma, and when we came together, it was like we had these walls just built up so high of not wanting to be hurt, you know what I'm saying? And we've come a long way, and I feel like our relationship is finally at a point where we understand each other more. But I'll go back to this, back to that. I'm like, wow, what would I do in that situation? And I'm like, guys, I can't stand a bully. I was bullied. I can't stand a bully. I can't stand someone who is mean or cruel or talks bad about people. I'm always a person that's like trying to look at the bright side. Like, well, maybe they're like that because of this, or maybe it's something, maybe, because if I don't think like that, those walls start to get built back up where I'm like, no, ain't nobody gonna hurt me. Ain't nobody gonna abandon me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I have to be careful, because if I live by scripture tells us, be made fools for the Messiah. Like, people going to abuse us. People are going to use us, abuse us, and mistreat us. But it's how we react that's going to ultimately be if we pass that test or not. You know what I'm saying? And guys, this is going to be an emotional roller coaster, this class, because I can't stand for people to be mistreated, and seeing it does something physically to my body. Like, I was crying. I was like, RJ's like, you okay? And I'm like, oh, babe. It made me so angry, like watching these people, you know, and I know it's all an experiment, but I'm like, I cannot stand people to mistreat people. And I'm asking you guys, like, what would you do? What would you do if you walked into a store, right? And they're mistreating somebody? Because guys, I don't know. You don't know unless you're in that situation. But there were some people who actually stood up for this woman. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, like, you'd have to weigh all your options. I know I know my professor, she's going to ask us to write about it. And I'm like, I would like to say that I would stick up for somebody and defend them in a situation where there's injustice, but I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I have. Like, okay, here's a story. How the ladies say, okay, story time. When I was younger, I had a friend, right? And she was my best friend, and she was such a beautiful friend to me. We just lost touch. I moved from Texas, and I just didn't look back because everyone that I knew was doing drugs, smoking weed, partying, drinking, was in that lifestyle. So I left it because I was changing my life, leaving Texas. So I was leaving all that behind me. But she was a very, very dear friend of mine, and we got in a situation where she had met some young men. We were young. I was like in my early 20s. And she had met some young men at the bar, because we used to do this thing called Tuesday night margaritas, where we'd go and get, like, I think they were like $5 margaritas, frozen margaritas. And so that was like our little tradition. And she met some young men at the bar, and she wanted to go back to their place, and they were military, and they were young. I mean, these guys were young, because I even felt like, for me being in my early 20s, I felt like they were a little young. You know, I kind of always shot to the higher age range, you know, more mature. But I was like, fine, if she wants to go, all right, I'll go with her, right? So we went to this house, and it was a house that was, you know, they were housed by the military. So we were there, and they were drinking, and this girl was trying to keep up with me because I could hold my alcohol. And we were taking shots, like, we were playing this game where you ask questions or whatever. And for some reason, like, and still to this day, like, I can't get drunk. Like, for some reason, my system doesn't process alcohol like that. And so I was drinking a lot. And so she was trying to keep up with me, and she got tore up. So much so that when it was time to go, like, we were going to leave, right? She stood up. Or was she going to go to the bathroom? I think she had to go to the bathroom. So she stood up. And as soon as she stood up, she went from standing up to falling, boom, like straight, like just stand up, and she passed out and fell on her fit, like her head hit the ground and everything. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I got sober real quick, like, and these guys were like, hey, you got to get her out of here. I mean, they went from 0 to 100, and they were like, you got to get her out of here. And like kicking her. And I'm like standing over her, like, hey, watch out, wait, hold up, like trying to stop them, you know, like, and I was like, help me carry her to her car, because we were in her vehicle. And I was like telling them, help me, right? And they didn't want to help me. So no kidding, guys. I had to drag this girl, which I was mad. I was like mad at her for not knowing her limit and not, you know, having self-control to say, okay, I've drunk enough, you know. I had to drag her out of this house by her arms. And she was not a small girl, okay? And I got to the front yard, and they start kicking at her again. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I put my body over. I'm like, hey, y'all need to chill. You know, like, hold up. This ain't going to happen. And I got up in one of their faces, right? And the dude pulled a gun out. He pulled a gun on me. I don't know if it was loaded, but I was not scared, because I was like, this is my friend. I'm going to defend her. He pulled the gun out, and he put the gun straight to my face like this. He pulled it straight to my face. And instead of like me being like, oh, no, don't shoot. I went towards the gun, and I went like this. What? I had the gun was like right here. And I was like, what? If you're going to shoot me, shoot me. But I'm not leaving her. I told him straight up, I'm not leaving her. All you have to do is help me get her in the car. Right. And I wasn't afraid. Like, whatever the Father, he had quickened my flesh, and he put that bravery in me. But I knew like there had been situations in my past where I have actually been the one to like step up and to do the right thing. And it'd be like a dramatic situation, you know? But, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I would do if I saw somebody like today, you know, like, cause people don't, guys, let me tell you one more story. There was this girl that I used to work with at Publix, right? And she would always like, she'd do this thing that I used to hate. And she did it to me twice. The second time was the last time she did this to me. She used to punch me in my arm. She used to do this thing where she'd come up to you and be like, hey, you know, hey girl, what's up? You know, and my husband, when he met her, because I thought she was cool. You know, I was trying to make friends with her. And my husband's like, that's not your friend. That's not your friend. And she was an African-American. I'm thinking, hey, this girl's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like I talked to her on the phone, blah, blah, blah. And when my husband met her, he's like, I'm telling you right now, Iris, she ain't your friend. Watch out. And I'm like, okay. You know, I'm just blind to all this. And because guys, even before I moved to here, I didn't have girlfriends. On the street, every girl I ever met became jealous of me for whatever reason. It never worked out. They became jealous. They didn't want to hang out with me. They, you know, they'd always ask me about my face. That was the first sign when I realized, okay, this chick's getting jealous of me. And I'm nobody, guys. I'm not saying that I'm attractive or I'm somebody to be, you know, jealous about. I'm not saying that. Whatever, because I think it was spiritual. Like whatever spiritual demons they were dealing with, they came to attack me. And it always ended up the same way. The girl would be like, why do you do your eyebrows like that? Or why are your eyelashes fake? Or the same thing all the time. They would always attack my appearance because I think it's because I have an insecurity about my appearance because of my freckles and my birthmark. And when I'm not wearing makeup, it's like, I don't know. It's because I was bullied before when I was younger. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was a child, I was bullied in school for one, being an orphan. And sometimes I was going to an all white school and I was the only Mexican, you know, and also because my birthmark and my freckles, like, and they would be like, oh, why do you have that red mark on your forehead? And blah, blah, blah. Children were mean, but whatever spirits and demons, these other people that I tried to make friends with were on them, that's what came attacking me. So for some reason, females are like that with me. They'll be like, are those your real eyebrows? And then when I start hearing stuff like that, I'm like, here it comes. But anyway, this girl, right? She used to come up and she'd hit people on the arm, like punch them, and nobody would say anything. I don't know if they were like intimidated by her or what. She did it one time and I was like, dang girl, like calm down, right? And one day she did it again and she hit me. And I said, you know what? And I reared back and I freaking socked that girl in her arm. And she's like, why'd you do that? And I was like, hey, if you hit me, don't expect me not to hit you. And I said, and matter of fact, I said, don't be hitting on me like that ever again. I told her straight up, don't ever hit me like that again. Cause, you know, I snapped. I went to that other Iris, you know, and I was like, and she was like, and then cause she worked on the other side of the bakery and she was a cake decorator. And she was over there talking about, oh, you know, if that girl, she just started talking nonsense. And I didn't know if she was talking about me or not, but she was like, if that girl wanted to come over and fight, she would fight, da, da, da. And I looked at her straight up and I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, chick, people ain't throwing punches no more. Okay. People are pulling out guns and shooting people. So if you trying to, you know, make somebody intimidated, I'm telling you right now, girl, save your breath, because you a grown woman. Ain't no grown woman, especially in a city and a state like this whose open carry is allowed. You talking about brawling? You talking about throwing punches? That's why I tell people, we are grown-ups, okay? We don't fight like we were in middle school. I ain't gonna be pulling your hair and smacking your face. No, that's not what people do anymore, okay? People are licensed gun carriers. You don't want to be putting your hands on nobody these days. You know what I'm saying? Like, so... I'm telling you, I have dealt with discrimination. I've dealt with racism. I've dealt with it, but I'm not comparing my situation to anybody else's. But I'm curious, have you guys ever dealt with, you know, racism, culture diversity, meaning like your culture clashes with other people? And I'm talking about culture, not culture it has a little to do with race, because I try to explain to people there could be a culture, but there be different races. So like a culture just means that like you a group of people agree with like practices or like traditions, you know, but they're not all the same race, but it's a culture. You know what I'm saying? So I'm wondering, like, have you guys ever experienced like culture diversity or racism where you are? You know, like, because this class, guys, it's got me on 100. It's got all my neurons firing, and like, ooh, this is gonna be crazy. Anyways, I gotta get back to work. RJ went to the grocery store to pick up a few things, but guys, all right, bye.